All right. And we're live. What's up, guys? Welcome to the Dynasty Power Hour, where we're here to answer all of your questions, Dynasty related, fantasy football related, anything that you want to ask. Just shoot us here. We're here for the next hour. My name is Jerry. I'm here with the Doc. What's up, Doc?
Oh, not too much. How you doing, Jerry? You need a cool nickname.
I do need a cool nickname. I got the little fireman stash going on.
I was just gonna say, I just noticed the stash. Nice little porn stash you got going on there.
Yeah, it's about all the facial hair that I can grow. It just grows all bushy and doesn't look nice, so I got to get rid of this. The wife doesn't like it, but I'll keep it for now. In the meantime, before the questions come in, or until the questions come in, we're going to talk about an actual Dynasty rookie draft that we had recently. We had it earlier this week. So we'll get into it. I'm going to try to share the screen. If it doesn't work out, then you guys will be able to see my beautiful face. But let me see what this does here.
I'd much prefer that, just for the record.
Let me see. So are you able to see the screen on your screen, Jordan?
Let's see. Not my screen. Let me see the Facebook feed here. Yep.
So you see the draft board?
Yep, you're up there.
All right, perfect. Do you see me at all? Am I anywhere?
You are in the corner.
Okay, so you still get to see my beautiful face.
This is a 2-for-1 special tonight.
We do have a question. It's not necessarily a dynasty question, but Grant asks, "Why does everyone always hate on the Niners?"
Well, I mean, the answer for me is because I'm a Rams fan, so I think that I'm kind of obligated to. So, no, I mean, I respect the 49ers. I personally really like how their team is built. I've said this a few times, but I think that you build a team from the interior out. So they have an excellent O-line. They have obviously that ground and pound game. They have a really strong defensive front. So I really respect how they built their team. I'm not the biggest Jimmy Garoppolo fan. I think they'd be better suited with a guy that just manages the game. I think Jimmy takes chances that he doesn't necessarily have to sometimes, but I mean, I respect how they built the team. We'll see if Kyle Shanahan can get rid of that choking reputation that he has now, but we'll see. I'm interested to see that the division's going to be super competitive this year. The Seahawks are always competitive because of Pete Carroll. I mean, he's just one of the best coaches in the league. The Cardinals, I know you're a big fan of them. They're an up-and-coming team. Kyler Murray will probably take over that division as the best quarterback within the next 2 to 3 years as Russell Wilson ages. So I think the whole division is really competitive. And, I mean, you could argue that the 49ers have the worst quarterback in the division. As a Rams fan, I would still say Jared Goff's worse, but, you could at least debate that.
Yeah, I don't hate the Niners either. Being a Bills fan, we don't really have any ill will towards them. I never had anything against them. I mean, I really don't want to see. Not that I don't want to see them in the playoffs, but as you mentioned, I want to see how I want to see the Cardinals. I want to see new teams in the playoffs too. I'm not going to root against Kansas City. I think they're going to make it. It'll be nice to see 6 or 7 brand new teams from the AFC too. But in the NFC, I want to see teams like Detroit. I want to see teams like Arizona. So, I mean, if that means having San Francisco not make the playoffs, then I'm for it. But I don't really hate them either. I mean, it's a good question. I mean, it's teams that have a history of winning and winning a lot, always get a lot of hate.
Yeah.
Dallas in the 90s, the Patriots of the 2010s. So, I mean, the Steelers just over the
We
times.
hate you because we're jealous.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, the people that hate them are people that just they want to see the world burn, basically. We actually have a couple other questions come in, so I'm going to get rid of this share screen for now, just so we answer these questions here. And still new to this eCam, so bear with me, guys. All right, there I am. So we got a question here. Travis, he asked, playing in a 2 PPR IDP Dynasty League, I went heavy on wide receiver and running back, addressing depth at those positions before really focusing on anything else. Is that the right move?
I mean, so anybody who plays fantasy with me knows I'm a big running back guy. And I argue with people pretty frequently that I think because there's so many running back by committees now, I actually think the value of running backs and for fantasy purposes has increased. Just because if you can get two or three of those top dogs that really don't have any competition for carries, I think it really gives you a competitive advantage. And obviously, with it being a passing lead, this is a very deep wide receiver class as well. I mean, you really can't go wrong with. I mean, I would argue the top 20 wide receivers in this year's rookie class could have an impact at some point in their career. So I definitely think I would prioritize running back over wide receiver if I had to choose, just because I think the value of a running back is more. In an IDP league, though, I always think there's going to be sleepers you can find on the waiver wire. You have some of your top dogs this year: Ken Murray, Isaiah Simmons, Chase Young, potentially Derek Brown. But beyond that, there's a lot of question marks. So you can really wait and kind of pick off of the waiver wire. And there's going to be guys that were drafted in the third, fourth, fifth round of the NFL draft that are going to be fantasy relevant. So a lot of times in an IDP league, if I miss out on those top few guys, I'm not even drafting an IDP.
Yeah, I tend to stay away from IDPs in my rookie drafts too, but I'm saying that as I'm looking at our most recent rookie draft, and I drafted an IDP in this one. But
You
I mean,
hypocrite.
I mean, you're exactly right though. You can get guys like a Miles Jack even who wasn't drafted this year, but get guys like Miles Jack who's going to be on. It's a bad defense, so look for linebackers on bad defenses who are going to be on the field. Get points from them. But I definitely agree with the strategy that Travis went with. He said he went wide receiver and running back heavy, and that's what you want to do in these rookie drafts. If you have the opportunity to get Joe Burrow without reaching on him, grab him, stash him, play him if you can, because obviously they got rid of Andy Dalton, so he is going to be their week one. You don't have to worry about a guy like Ryan Fitzpatrick over there in front of Tua or Tyrod Taylor over there in front of Justin Herbert. You know Joe Burrow is going to be the guy week one. So don't overpay for him, but get him if you can at the end of the first, early second in your rookie draft. But wide receiver, running back heavy, that's definitely the way to go. Lucas asks, "What's up, guys? I have the following wideouts in Dynasty: 12-team, one quarterback PPR. Who would you trade for RB depth?" He has Saquon, Chubb, and Lindsey right now. The wideouts that he has is Adams, Michael Thomas, Robert Woods, Cortland Sutton, Michael Gallup, Tyler Boyd, Traquan Smith, Arcega Whiteside, Ward from Philly, and Curtis Samuel.
So, I mean, there's a couple. It really depends who's on the block, first of all. I mean, that's a solid group of wide receivers there, obviously, with Adams and Michael Thomas on top. I really love Robert Woods just because I think he's a really safe PPR wide receiver and super underrated. I would say, though, that on the open market, you're not going to get fair value for him just because he has that reputation. He was a top 15 PPR wide receiver last season, but I really don't think anybody's going to give you top 15 PPR value for Robert Woods just because that's the reality of what his value is. I could argue that Cortland Sutton might have more value than he has long term. I love Cortland Sutton, but there's a lot of targets to go around. I really like Drew Lock, but we haven't seen him perform for a whole season yet. So I could argue that Cortland Sutton's value could go down over time. Michael Gallup, it's the same thing. Whenever I'm talking trades, I always recommend to people that you never trade a guy when he's at his lowest point in value-wise. So Michael Gallup, I think, is kind of in that scenario right now, where if you're not going to get a fair offer for him, I would just hold him because I still think he has a lot of value, especially in dynasty leagues. Even if he's not one of the Cowboys' starting wide receivers, he's going to be one of the Cowboys' starting receivers, but even if he doesn't get as many targets as he got last year, realistically, long term, he's going to be signing a contract somewhere else, and he's a number two. I wouldn't say quite a number one, but I think he's a solid number two wide receiver for a team. So if he doesn't sign with Dallas, I could see him having a lot of value somewhere else. Same with Tyler Boyd. I think A.J. Green's not going to be there long term. I think you're going to see T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd be there long term. Even if A.J. Green does stick around, they decline John Ross's option, so it looks like John Ross is out Cincinnati. But I would really see who is the hottest name on the market right now. I personally wouldn't be getting rid of Michael Thomas or Devontae Adams right now because I just think that's a really strong 1-2 punch right there. But, find somebody who overvalues one of those guys. We have a good example of a guy that loves the Broncos that we play in leagues with. If you have a guy like that in your league, I would just fish guys out there. I never go out and say, okay, I'm going to trade Cortland Sutton right now. I would put it out there, hey, I'm looking to trade a wide receiver for running back depth and see what offers you can get and really negotiate from there.
Yeah, just piggybacking off of you, Jordan. You got a solid, basically a solid six guys right there that you could make any combination of three, four, whatever your league settings are. Two wide receivers, one flex, whatever it might be. And I agree. I wouldn't touch Adams or Michael Thomas. I would try to hold onto them as long as I can. But even if you wanted to just like throw a feeler out there and kind of see what you're looking at, or just skim through all the rosters and kind of see who's weaker at the wide receiver position and stronger at running backs, maybe even trade one of those lower guys like a Boyd or a Gallup for somebody like Melvin Gordon to get that Denver backfield because you do have Lindsey there too. But Saquon and Chubb, that's a good 1-2 punch there. Maybe try to see what Hunt would cost you. Try to double up on somebody like that. Or if you're just looking for another running back out of just not on any of those teams, just to add to your arsenal. Yeah, I mean, look and see what Woods, Sutton, Gallup, or Boyd can get you. You're really not getting anything for Traquan, Whiteside, Samuel. Well, maybe Samuel, he'd be the next guy up. But Traquan, Whiteside, and Ward, you're really not going to get much for there. Those are like if four of your guys have bye weeks, flex plays there.
Let me throw a kind of an interesting question that just kind of popped into my mind. So Michael Thomas, do we think that he's going to have a repeat of last season or ever repeat those numbers?
Not a repeat, no. I mean, he's still going to probably finish in the top three wide receivers. He still has Drew Brees throwing him the ball, and if he gets injured, you got Jameis Winston throwing him the ball. So he's going to have a lot of targets, a lot of catches, and a lot of yards, and a lot of touchdowns. But I don't think he's gonna be a record breaking Michael Thomas.
Yeah, because I'm thinking theoretically, I mean, we might never see Michael Thomas's value be bigger than it is now. This is Drew Brees last year on his contract. Will Jameis take over long term? I mean, we don't know. Maybe we can guess, but Jameis is only there for 1 year as of right now. So I would argue that if somebody's willing to overpay for Michael Thomas or even pay a pretty high premium, I don't think there's a problem with getting rid of him. Just because I could argue that you should always sell guys at their peak. And I really don't think he's ever going to be more valuable than he is now. So if there's a good offer, I would say that that's something I would consider taking advantage of.
Now, who would you target in that situation? And he already mentioned that he has Barkley too. I don't think you're trading C-Mac for Michael Thomas straight up. So who would you target for somebody like Michael Thomas, even in a package deal?
Yeah, I mean, he's got Chubb too. I mean, I would see maybe if you could even get a few younger running backs. You know how much I love Miles Sanders. So I would think that you could get a guy like Miles Sanders, Josh Jacobs, even one of those younger stud running backs, plus something else, maybe a future first-round pick, and still get to dump Michael Thomas.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely the option out there. You're looking at your roster and you're looking at you got two of the top five wide receivers there with Devontae Adams and Michael Thomas. You could pretty much do whatever you want with that. You could hold on to them or you could trade them. But you also have those other four that we mentioned that are pretty good tradable pieces too. So you don't have to lose Thomas or Adams and you can still get a good piece in return. Travis comes back with another, I don't even know if this is a question, but Aaron Jones and Kareem Hunt are my running backs. Michael Thomas and Keenan Allen are starting wideouts. I was able to pick up Marlon Mack. This is the guy that mentioned that he went wide receiver and running back heavy in his Dynasty draft, so he's just letting us know a couple other guys that he has. So Aaron Jones and Kareem Hunt.
I want to mention Kareem Hunt quickly, though. He's only 24 years old. I think we forgot really quickly how good he was with the Chiefs. Long term, I don't expect him to play second fiddle to Nick Chubb. So I can't remember how long they signed him for. I think he's only here through with Cleveland for one more season. So he's still 24 years old. I expect him to get a starting spot eventually. So I really like him as far as a buy candidate at his current value, just because I anticipate him being in a better opportunity in the future. When he was on the field for the Browns last year, he was really good still. He didn't lose a step just because he was out of football for a few months. So I really like Kareem Hunt. He's still really young, and I think there's a lot of value to be found there.
Yeah, it's just been a tricky offseason just altogether. We've just going back to the draft, we talk about guys that got drafted in the wrong spots and where they don't fit immediately. And Kareem Hunt is another one of those guys where he signed a 1-year deal last year, kind of okay, let's get his feet wet and see and the 2020 or 2019 offseason is going to be the offseason where, okay, we're going to have another starting running back, Kareem Hunt, that's going to be going to a team and going to help him, and he ends up staying in Cleveland. So this is the kind of offseason we've had so far, but he's. Yeah, I mean, I could definitely see him starting in this league again as long as he stays off the trouble radar, which he has been. I mean, he hasn't been. He had that one incident where he got pulled over during the season, or was it earlier in the off season? I forgot. It was.
I think it was early off season.
Yeah, it was recent, but nothing happened of that. So
I think he was sad because he wasn't on the Chiefs and they won the Super Bowl.
yeah, I mean that's a good reason to go out and get pulled over. Lucas, who asked about those wide receivers, he thanks guys. I might just stay. He might just stay too. Just worried if one of those running backs goes down. I don't have a first round pick, so my first pick in the rookie draft is 2-5. So don't know where I'm going to get a running back. Keep up the good work, fellas. And we could actually use that to transition into the draft board that we were going to go over. At 2-5 in this league, this is a 12-team league. 2-5. AJ Dillon went 2-4 and McFarland went 2-6. So a couple of decent running backs there. None of them are really taking over their backfield, I don't think, in 2020. But yeah, let me see if I could mirror this board again for you guys. And
yeah, and I think once you get to that point in rookie drafts that the quality of running backs really dips quickly. Not to say that none of those guys will make an impact, but you're starting to look at Antonio Gibson, McFarland, A.J. Dillon. Zach Moss was going there, but he's been a trendy name recently, and I've seen him moving up a little bit, but potentially him. I've seen people reach on Eno Benjamin. But, I mean, they're all question marks. None of them are taking over the backfield tomorrow. Josh Kelly, Evans, I've seen Evans go kind of in that spot a few times now. So a lot of those guys are really question marks. And I could argue the only guy from day one that'll have a value is probably Zach Moss. And I actually really like Evans. I think he's going to be working on third downs a lot for the Titans. But once you get in that spot, there's definitely a lot of questionable running backs.
yeah, even Pirine lost a little bit of value today with Frank Gore going to New York, so that kind of hurts a little bit. So hopefully you guys can see it. I got the draft board. This is from an actual draft that we had, a Dynasty that we just started this year. It is in snake order. I had a little, not really an argument, but just kind of a disagreement in our chat. And,
Argument?
yeah, I guess. Okay, it was an argument. It was just a miscommunication in our chat where some people thought it was going to be snake and some people thought it was going to be linear, and both parties brought good arguments. So so we just decided to do snake, and then 2020 and beyond we're going to do linear. But so if you're looking at the draft, Brandon Ayuk went 2-1. And it goes in snake order. So no surprise, 1-1 was Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He's been going 1-1 in a lot of drafts. You really can't go wrong with that pick there. It's pick 2, 3, and 4 where you kind of start to get a little, okay, who do I want to go with? I mean, Jonathan Taylor, he's there with Marlon Mack. He's there with Nyheim Hines. They got Phillip Rivers, who likes to sling the ball around there now. But I think long term, that's going to be your best option there. If you wanted something more immediate, I think Cam Akers would probably be the way to go. He ended up going number 3. DeAndre Swift is another one of those long term guys with Kerryon Johnson there. But those, for the most part, are pretty much your top 4. J.K. Dobbins. He could slip into the top 5. In this case, he went at 7, but you're pretty much looking at out of those 5, the top 4 that went in this draft, and then you're starting to dip into the wide receivers. So really no surprises here. Did you want to touch on anything before we move on to the back half of the first round?
Yeah, I mean, I think Hilaire's been pretty much the consensus number 1. After that, it's really pick your favorite. I mean, I think I've even seen Jonathan Taylor go number 1 a few times. And I really can't argue that. I think he's in a good spot with the Colts. They have a great offensive line now, finally. They traded up to get him. Marlon Mack's not going to be there after this season. I've seen a few people argue that Jonathan Taylor's going to be the lead dog this year and Marlon Mack's just purely the handcuff. I personally just don't buy that. Marlon Mack's a starting caliber running back, and if he's on the roster, I don't think you can just sit him and push him off to the side. And not to mention, if the Colts are concerned with Taylor's durability, which I know a lot of people are because of the number of carries that he had in college, no, you can give Jonathan Taylor a year to kind of ease into it with Marlon Mack. Hines has been a really good third down back, so I really like Taylor long term, but I wouldn't be surprised if not many of these guys, even Cam Akers, I mentioned before, I think in the beginning that Sean McVay is looking over his shoulder and seeing what the 49ers are doing, and he's going, I could do that with Cam Akers, Henderson, and Malcolm Brown. So I wouldn't be surprised if they went in that direction, especially early in the season. So I think realistically, you could be looking at four guys here that don't make an immediate impact till later in the season. But long term, you got to love Hilaire's spot, Jonathan Taylor's spot. Cam Akers, even as a Rams fan, I'm a little about, but I love DeAndre Swift, and I think they're going to commit to the run. But it's really a matter of preference, I think, at that point.
And J.K. Dobbins, you throw in there into the top five.
Yeah, I mean, I have him ranked a little lower just because I don't think that the Ravens are ever going to fully commit to one running back. We even saw with Mark Ingram last year. He had a really great fantasy season, but he didn't have as many. It was just barely over. I think he had 220 right around there, so 230. Not as many carries as you would think. I mean, Lamar Jackson himself is taking 200 carries. They still have other talented running backs there. So I really think long-term it's going to be kind of a 49ers situation. I think J.K. Dobbins is a talented running back, but it's just one of those situations that I'm not 100% convinced he's ever going to get the full workload.
And one thing that we really haven't brought up, and we had a little mini series on Jonathan Taylor. We've had a couple rookie drafts that we've talked about, but Jonathan Taylor has had a little bit of fumbling issues in college. Is that a concern to you, or we haven't really talked about that at all?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's always a concern when you see that. But, I mean, we've seen, I know Tiki Barber is the first one that comes to mind, a guy that was really known for fumbling, and he worked on it over the course of his career. So, I mean, that's something with a really good running back coach that you can work with. I don't know who the Colts running back coach is off the top of my head. I'm not that good. But, I mean, I think realistically that's something you can work on as far as where you're holding the ball and making it harder for defenders to punch out. But it's definitely going to be a concern in year one, because it's not going to happen overnight. It'll take a few years for him to get adjusted.
All right. And then a couple comments came in while we were going over these top four, all from Ed. He says that snake is literally the only way to go. I disagree in rookie drafts. I think in rookie drafts you got to go linear. The bottom team should always be picking first in each round, and that's just how it is. That's how I've done all my dynasties except for the ones with Ed, I guess. But yeah, I think linear is the way to go in rookie drafts. Snake is the way to go in all other drafts. I've never done an auction draft though. I don't know if I'm going to fall in love with it or not the first time I do it, but. I mean, what's your thoughts on the way a draft should go?
Yeah, I mean, I always think that, especially in dynasty leagues, it shouldn't be snake, and the reason being is you're trying to bring as much of a competitive balance as possible. So realistically, if that team with the worst record is picking first, they probably have a ton of holes to fill. So I really think that in order to kind of bring the league into competitive balance, I mean, I think that's the same reason that the NFL has the draft set up the way that it is. It's set up as a non-snaking draft, and I think it's for that reason, to bring a little bit of a competitive balance. So in order to keep that, I think that going with a linear draft is the way to go.
All right, and then Ed also said that he traded Hilaire for Akers and Landry. I think it's a pretty solid deal. We don't know how Hilaire is going to be, and we don't know how Akers is going to be. So you're trading the consensus number 1 for a top 4 pick plus a pretty legit wide receiver. So I'm not against that deal at all. What do you think about that deal?
Yeah, no, I think that actually I was having this conversation on Twitter with somebody today about Jarvis Landry, so that's kind of funny. But Jarvis Landry is always so underdrafted and so underrated. In PPR leagues, I mean, he's a monster. I equate him to Julian Edelman. I always thought Julian Edelman, just because he wasn't a sexy name, was always underdrafted. But in PPR leagues, I mean, he's a consensus almost every year, a top 15 wide receiver in PPR formats. Edelman was always top 10, but Jarvis Landry for the last half of last season, over the course of the last 8 weeks, was actually wide receiver 3 in PPR leagues. And I don't think a lot of people realize that. Just his consistency was incredible. And that was in a year where Baker really struggled. And they have Stefanski there now. Their offensive line is much improved. So I think Landry is criminally being underdrafted right now and undervalued overall.
Yeah, he's going back to his Miami days. He's been just a PPR monster. he hasn't really had the best of luck with quarterbacks in his career, but I mean, he's now being in Cleveland, he doesn't have to be the guy like he was in Miami. He's got Odell taking away double coverage, so definitely opens him up a little bit. Ed, a couple other comments that he had when you were talking about the Rams running backs, he said that Brown and Henderson suck. And then when you're talking about the Ravens running backs, the Ravens got up early in a lot of games, and that's why guys like what the frick is his name? Gus Edwards saw a lot of
Gus
time.
Edwards.
Yeah, last year. And then piggybacking off what we were talking about for the draft, Lucas, who's mentioned a couple things already, he said that in one of his dynasties, they do the top team that misses the playoffs gets the first pick, so that prevents tanking. So if you finish last, you get the sixth pick, and then the playoff teams are normal. So I mean, that's a way to do it. There's a lot of cool ways to do it. And I run a league. It's not a dynasty league, but I run a league where the toilet bowl teams get the pick where they want to draft, and it's a keeper league. So you're not like, okay, since I won the toilet bowl, I want to pick first. I mean, that's the way it's gonna go because guys like C-Mac and Saquon Barkley are available for draft, but because of the way that our keeper rules are set up. But if you wanted to pick 8th, 9th, 10th, you can if you won the toilet bowl. So I mean, yeah, there's a lot of different ways that other leagues do it, and
I have a league like that as well.
yeah, it just keeps the toilet bowl competitive. With our strict keeper rules, we've been running for about, I think we're going on year 8 this year, year 8 or year 7 this year, and it's fun. I mean, we do the live draft at my house. Everybody brings a dish, drinks some beers, and it's just fun. Getting back into this rookie draft that we did, like I said, this is a legit rookie draft. This is for an actual league that we are running on our page. These are all admins from our page, and yeah, so we left off at 1-5. J.K. Dobbins, like I said, he's usually been going anywhere between like 1-4 to 1-6, 1-7. In this case, he went 1-7, but 1-5 and 1-6, he had the top two wide receivers go, Jerry Jeudy and CeeDee Lamb. Our first surprising pick, I think, is 1-8, Keyshawn Vaughn, which is actually you. So let's explain that a little bit. How did he dip into the first round for you?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'll first mention that I actually ended up with 3 of the running backs in the first round there. I made a few trades, and I ended up with Swift, Dobbins, and Keyshawn Vaughn. I mean, more than anything, I'm a big running back guy, as I mentioned previously, and I think it dips off very quickly after Vaughn. And not to mention, I think the wide receiver pool is very deep, so I have him ranked 10th, I believe, in my rookie ranking, so it's a little more of a stretch, but it was more based off a need for me. And the combination of, I think that I had the ability to grab a good receiver later on.
Yeah, I mean, if he ends up being the guy in Tampa or even splitting time with Ronald Jones, it's not a bad pick at all. He is, excuse me, he is the kind of the last running back before that drop off into the more running back by committee running backs that are in this rookie draft. So it's not a bad pick at all. Justin,
Yeah, no, and I was looking at depth too because I have Ezekiel Elliott, Kenyon Drake, DeAndre Swift, J.K. Dobbins, and Keyshawn Vaughn. So, out of those 5 names, I mean, at least 3 of them have to be solid for me.
yeah, just throwing darts and hope they all stick, but those are good darts to have. Those are like oversized darts you get. Justin Jefferson went to 1-9 to a Vikings fan. We forgot to mention Jerry Jeudy went to a Broncos fan. So, and then Henry Ruggs went at 1-10. That was your guy out of the draft. We talked a little bit about him. We have a mini series. His mini series episode is out right now, so you could take a listen to that on YouTube. Check it out on our page at Fantasy Holics and Facebook. And then the second surprising pick of the first round was Joe Burrow, being that it is a 1 quarterback league. Even though I did mention a little earlier in this broadcast that if you have a chance to get him towards the end of the first round, early second, that's a good spot for him. But Thunderjack went with him at 1-11, and I mean, there's other guys I probably would have taken over him, which is why it's an odd pick there. But it's not necessarily a bad pick. I mean, he's probably the best quarterback out of this draft. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only reason it's surprising in this case is because there were still some good wide receivers on the board. You saw Rieger go right after Ayuk. Chenault, Pittman, who I love Michael Pittman this season. So, I mean, there Denzel Mims, who's the number one with the Jets right now. So, I think the only reason it was surprising was there was some good names left. But I could argue if you're looking for a sure thing, I mean, Joe Burrow is going to be a top 15 quarterback for the next 10 years in fantasy leagues. So, I mean, if you're looking for a safe pick and maybe you don't have a good option at quarterback long term, I don't think it's the worst pick. I'd have to look at his quarterback situation, and maybe Joe Burrow is going to fill a big need for him.
Yeah, yeah. It's a good spot for him. Like I said, you want to kind of load up on wide receivers and running backs if you can, but if you feel that Joe Burrow is the best guy on the board for you, then take him. Don't take him in the top four. I mean, unless you're in a super flex league, but towards the end of the first round, early second, take him. And then, like you mentioned, Jalen Reagor was the last pick of the first round. Lucas, he asks, is it time to trade Kelsey and or Julio? Other Dynasty League, I'm a consistent playoff team and have both of them, and debating if it's time before value goes away, and he's more worried about Kelsey.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of mentioned this previously. I love trading guys at their peak value. And I could argue that Julio and Travis Kelce are there right now. I think Travis Kelce is 31.
Yep.
I'm not sure how old Julio is.
He's
off the top
31
of my
also.
head. I was going to say 31, 32 as well. So they're starting to get to that point. Julio's had some foot problems, which always makes me a little nervous for a wide receiver. So it's once again, if you can get a really nice offer for him, especially if you can get younger, I might even argue that taking two younger wide receivers in exchange for him would be worth it. So I actually did this recently in a Dynasty League where I got Kenny Galladay and a first-round pick for Julio. And that's, to me, I love Kenny Galladay, much younger than Julio. So my team got younger. I would argue it's not much worse, and I was able to pick up a pick in the process. So, I'm all for getting younger and picking up extra value if you can.
Yeah, I think I'm going to be on the other side of the fence when it comes to this. I mean, you got, like, if you could get good value for them, then definitely, like I said, put feelers out there and see what's out there for you. But don't jump at the first thing that's offered to you. But at the same time, I mean, Kelsey is the number one target on his team. Julio's the number one target on his team. Atlanta went out and they got Todd Gurley. So if he stays healthy, their run game should be a lot better than what it has been the years that Freeman was there, except for the 1 year that Freeman had his career year. But I mean, with Calvin Ridley there, they got Hayden Hurst there, they got Todd Gurley there. You can't just focus on one guy. So Julio's going to get his targets like he always has been. And I mean, if you're in win now mode, and if you're a consistent playoff team like you said that you are, I might try to hold on to them. But at the same time, the longer that you hold on to them, the worse that their trade value is going to be. So, but if you think that you can take it all with having Julio, the number one target in Atlanta, and Travis Kelce, the number one target in Kansas City, on two teams that throw the ball a lot, then I mean, I'd hold on to them unless you're getting like an over the top deal for them.
Yeah, no, and I think overall, I guess my philosophy when it comes to trading is nobody's ever untouchable. I mean, if you get good value or somebody's willing to overpay for a guy, I'm always willing to trade, so I'm open to it. I'm not the biggest trader. I don't trade every day like some people that I know, but I mean, that's always my slogan when it comes to trading is nobody's untouchable. So I wouldn't necessarily say you have to get rid of them. But there's nothing wrong with throwing it out there saying Julio's on the block, and there might be someone out there that's willing to overpay.
Yeah, exactly. If you don't want to, if you're not, like, if you're actively shopping them, but you don't want to, like, if you want to wait and see what people are looking to give you, just mention that they're on the block and then watch the trade offers come in. Don't go out and offer something unless it's something that you absolutely want. Mm-hmm. Going back to this not mock draft, this is an actual draft. You already mentioned the next couple of wide receivers.
This is real life.
This is a real live draft that already happened. This is so we already mentioned the wide receivers that came off the board. We touched a little bit about the running backs that were around the 2-5 pick: A.J. Dillon, Anthony McFarland, T. Higgins, which got a little bit of good news recently with John Ross not coming back, or they didn't pick up his option. And as we know, A.J. Green is still on the franchise tag, so he's not there. He potentially is not there long term. So Higgins could go from being the 33rd overall pick this year to being the number 2 wide receiver in Cincinnati next year. So that's if you could get him, hold on to him. Antonio Gandy Golden in Washington, he could be the number 2 there behind Terry McLaurin. Antonio Gibson, who was given running back status in Washington, coach likes him, says that he could be like a Christian McCaffrey type. So definitely look out for that. He could have some value there. Tua, he went at 210 to John, who took Cam Akers. I don't have all the trades in front of me, so that might not have even happened. But the way I'm looking at the board, it looks like that's how it went. Chase Claypool was my next guy that I took. I was kind of between him and Evans. I was actually hoping that Evans would drop into the next round where I took Benjamin, but I probably should have took Evans first and then waited for Chase Claypool. I played it wrong, and my guy got sniped on me by Eric there,
You
but
lose.
I'd lost that one, yeah. But yeah, so between the second and third round is kind of when you get that dip. You still got a lot of startable players there in the second round. A lot of guys that could see the field in 2020. A lot of guys that could be good rookies this year. And then the third round, with the exception of maybe a couple people here, and then we're starting to get into IDPs and tight ends. You're looking at a little bit of a drop off in guys that are more of long term stashes. So why don't you take it away and talk about anybody in the second round, or just kick off the third round?
Yeah, no, one name that I want to talk about briefly is Antonio Gibson. This is a guy that is so. I've been so on the fence about him. I think this is a fine spot for him, and we're at the point where none of these running backs are guaranteed a long term role, but I am really stuck in the middle if I think Antonio Gibson is a gadget player or a legitimate fantasy asset long term. And I mean, I don't know. I'm kind of in the mindset that I think it's time to give up on Darius Geis for the Redskins. AP is obviously not going to be there forever. They signed Peyton Barber, who is you. So, I mean, there's some people there right now, but, I mean, I think Gibson's probably the most explosive back on that team now. So he's really intriguing to me, and he's just one of those – I don't know. He's really polarizing to me. I think that's a good spot for him. I've seen some people start to reach on him. I'm not really in that boat, but the only other name I'll bring up here, I'll bring up two more. Anthony McFarland. I think that he is going to have a long-term role in Pittsburgh. I like James Conner, but I think Anthony McFarland's far more explosive, so I think that's a good spot for him. Then the last name I'll bring up briefly is Michael Pittman. I just think he has all the makings of a wide receiver number one. T.Y. Hilton's struggled with injuries over the course of the past few years now, so I think given time, you could see in year two that Michael Pittman could be the sleeper wide receiver of this class. We actually did a mock one day, and he went 6th or 7th overall, so I've seen people start to reach on him a little bit. I personally like him towards the end of the first round. He went a few picks later, it looks like, 13, 14, 15th overall here, so, I mean, that's a fantastic spot for him, but he's a guy that I really like as well.
What do you think about, or not? What do you think? Why don't you talk a little bit about our little internal bet that we got with the wide receivers?
Yeah, so essentially we made a bet. I don't even know. Did we put a dollar amount on it? I don't even know.
Yeah, it
I
was
just saw a
$10
bet.
each, so it's $60 to
I
the
was like,
winner.
I saw a bet, and I was like, yep, don't care, I'm in. So, yeah, I mean, we all picked a rookie wide receiver that we thought was going to finish with the most receiving yards. I picked Michael Pittman. Who'd you end up picking?
I
Oh,
picked
Justin Jefferson,
Yeah, I
I'm
picked Justin
assuming.
Jefferson. Eric, who initiated the bet, he picked Denzel Mims. Adam, I believe, picked Jalen Rieger. And Ryan, Fantasy Rye Dog, he picked Brandon Ayuk. And the last one was, I believe it was Ruggs. Let me double check. But I think the bet was overall fantasy points, not just receiving yards. So we got.
I was going to say, I know Ruggs didn't get picked because when no one picked him, I was like, man, I might switch, but I like Michael Pittman,
Kind of
and
felt
he's a
like.
little more of a makes it a little more interesting.
Oh, I'll give you one guess at who it was and who they took.
Jerry Judy.
Yep. So a lot of solid wide receivers. Jefferson obviously is battling with Adam Thielen. You got Michael Pittman there, who could be the number one, but he's still got T.Y. Hilton there. Brandon Ayuk, who's out there in a run heavy San Francisco offense. Jerry Judy, obviously CD or Cortland Sutton is there. Denzel Mims. I think Denzel Mims is probably in the best he's probably in the best situation overall, where he could be the legit number one from the beginning of the season all the way to the end, where the other guys might just have to work into their roles. But you got Sam Darnold who sees ghosts and catches mono, so who knows how long that's going to last. But it's a good bet. The winner basically gets $10 from each person, so they're winning $50 in all, and it's a nice season-long bet that we can just kind of keep track of.
Yeah, and I'll say the Mims. Eric was the one that picked Mims that initiated it. I completely get why you would pick Mims. He's probably going to be the wide receiver one from day one. But I personally am just not sold on Sam Darnold, and I know most people are. And then number two, I've talked, and I'll bring up Adam Gase's name every single time we talk about the Jets. But I mean, name me the last time that Adam Gase had a fantasy relevant wide receiver. I don't think it's ever happened when he's been in charge of an offense. So, and not to mention, I just don't think Denzel Mims is a number one wide receiver. I haven't seen that kind of production from him, and I don't think he has that kind of ability. I might regret saying that later on, so I'm not going to post this anywhere. But I don't personally see it.
I think that he can. I like Mims. Like I said, he's in a good situation. He's in a good spot. I don't think the Jets are that scary to begin with. Now you kind of have to respect him a little bit more because they went out and got Frank Gore, so he's never going to retire. It's him and Adrian Peterson are just going to keep on going back and forth with staying in the league. And but yeah, I mean Denzel Mims, he definitely has an opportunity to be the guy there, and it was a good pick for him to take him because these other guys they're kind of battling with, like, even Jalen Reagor. He's still got JJ Arcega-Whiteside is there, who isn't really much of anything, but they still have Alshon Jeffrey and Deshaun Jackson. So to go out and to pick Jalen Reagor, yeah, he's the Eagles' first round pick, but to pick him to lead all out of these six guys in fantasy points by the end of the year, it's a little crazy. I mean, even though it could happen. Lucas, who's been with us this whole night so far, he says his two sleepers of this class are Bryan Edwards and DJ Dallas. Any thoughts on them? DJ Dallas went in the third round in our rookie draft, and then Bryan Edwards went in the fourth round to a guy that actually took three of the Vegas weapons in this draft. Yeah, he even mentioned that when we were talking about when we were in our group chat, how he took Henry Ruggs, Lynn Bowden, and Bryan Edwards. It's pretty funny, but they gave Lynn Bowden running back status. Did you see that?
Yeah, yep.
So, I mean, I guess it kind of, just without even doing anything, it made his draft a little bit better.
Yeah, I mean, I compare Bowden to Antoine Randall. I think that's what kind of player he is. More, he'll be able to pass a little bit. He'll get you some points there. He'll run the ball. He'll catch some passes. But I don't ever think he's going to be overly fantasy relevant. But yeah, so going back to DJ Dallas, I mean, it's an interesting name to me. Obviously, the Seahawks have been known for having a strong run game, and I think where he's going right now, it's worth the risk. Chris Carson has been injury prone, but when he's on the field, he's been very productive. Mm-hmm. And I won't say that I'm a Chris Carson hater, but he's just always one of those names. I'm like, I don't want Chris Carson. And then every year he produces. So, I don't necessarily see Dallas having a short-term role, and I think it would take a lot for him to carve out a long-term role. I mean, they still took Rashad Penny in the first round a few years ago now, which is still such a perplexing pick to me, and I can't get over it. I think about it every once in a while, and it's just it's a strange pick. And when he's been healthy, Rashad Penny's shown flashes, and I think he still has ability. So, I mean, DJ Dallas is an interesting name. I'm not taking him earlier than probably the fourth round in rookie drafts, but I think he's an interesting name. Bryan Edwards, I've kind of seen all over the board. I've seen him go in the second round, third round, fourth round, even beyond that. So he's an interesting name to me. I think he has the size and ability to be a number one wide receiver on a team. My biggest concern long term, and I actually made this determination, so I'm connected with a guy who runs a page called SportsMed Analytics on Twitter. He's an orthopedic surgeon, so anytime I have an injury question, I message him and I ask, hey, what's up with this guy? And he said that he was actually super concerned about Bryan Edwards' his long-term viability, or durability, I should say. He's had a few surgeries in college, and they're surgeries that have long-term implications as far as how often and how long a player can play. So I don't know all the details of the surgeries, but I mean that's a legitimate concern. I mean that's coming. I'm not a doctor. I'm just a doctor of fantasy. So he's an orthopedic surgeon that told me that he would be really concerned about Bryan Edwards' long-term health. So I think he's worth the risk if you get him in the third or fourth round, but I'm not reaching for him in the second round just based on that.
Yeah, he went fourth round in this draft, and there's not many guys that went behind him that I probably would have taken over him. Maybe Van Jefferson, who went a couple picks later. Maybe KJ Hill, but they still have Keenan Allen and Michael Williams there. Mike Williams, not Michael Williams there. So, but yeah, I mean, in the fourth round, when you're talking about rookies, you're really just throwing darts and trying to see what lands and sticks. Ricky asked a question. He has more touches, Kerryon Johnson or DeAndre Swift?
Oh man, that's really tough. I mean, I think that it could be really close by the end of the season. I think that could be a buzzer beater that comes down to the last game of the season. But I'm going to say DeAndre Swift just purely because I think he has more talent than Kerryon. Not to say that Kerryon doesn't. I could see Kerryon leading the team in touches from weeks 1 to 8, and then Swift completely taking over that backfield from weeks 8 and beyond. So I'm going to say just purely based on talent that it's going to be Swift.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you. They picked him a little early. Kerryon hasn't really been able to stay on the field for a full season, so they'll probably be splitting. It's probably going to be like a 50-50 split, but DeAndre Swift, I think, is going to end up with more catches at the end of the year, catching a couple more balls out of the backfield too.
Yeah, I mean, you don't take a running back in the second round if you have confidence in your incumbent. That's a reality.
Yeah, nope. Getting into the third round of this draft, any names that really stick out to you? Like I said, Perrine kind of lost a little bit of value. I mean, Gore's there. He only signed 1 year, so not saying that Perrine's completely undraftable, but
Yeah.
I don't see him really seeing a lot this year with Gore being there. I don't know why Gore would go to New York. They not going to make the playoffs.
Him and Adam Gase have a thing, I guess. He's worked with Gase with three different teams now.
Yeah, he's trying to just play for every AFC East team, it looks like.
Yeah, I mean, so the first name that sticks out to me right away is Zach Moss went with the first pick. I had to relook. It's Snake, so it is the first pick of this round. I was reading the board wrong for a second, but Zach Moss went with the first pick. I'm actually really surprised. I think that's really good value for him. Mm-hmm. I don't think that he has as much value in a PPR league, but I don't know. It's been very trendy on Twitter right now, and people that have Devin Singletary are worried that Zach Moss is going to take over that backfield completely. I'm still not worried about that just because I think Singletary has a lot of talent, but I think Zach Moss, even if it ends up being more of a 50-50 timeshare than I think we're hoping for as Devin Singletary owners, I think it's still really good value to get him in that spot. Another guy, I don't know, did you end up with Eno Benjamin? I see he's the second pick. Did you take him, or was that a part of a trade?
I believe that was my pick. This was yeah, I think I had all my picks in this draft.
Talk to me about Eno then. Why'd you take Eno in that spot? Because I'm not an Eno fan.
I wanted another running back. I was kind of between, like I said, I was hoping Evans would kind of fall there after I took Claypool. I should have played that a little bit differently. I was kind of between Josh Kelly and Eno Benjamin, and just thinking about it, like I really wasn't thinking about Chase Edmonds when I did it either. I was like, okay, he's in a good situation if Drake doesn't perform, or if he kind of just, or if he gets injured or whatever, could come in. Then I was like, shit, I forgot about Chase Edmonds. So it was I probably should have took Josh Kelly. I'm not going to say it was a mistake pick, but I do.
But you are.
No, I do like him. I just it's again, it's a dart throw. It's a shot in the dark. I'm pretty sure Bowden was still a wide receiver when we did this draft. They must have just changed that, because I don't remember him being a running back. I think because we were even talking about it, and when Greg mentioned that he took all of Vegas's weapons, I'm pretty sure I looked at it, and he had wide receiver designation too. So I knew I wanted running back, but it was between him and Josh Kelly.
Yeah, no, and I've seen Eno as a really trendy name recently in Dynasty circles. And I mean, pre-draft, I thought he was going to go much higher than the 7th round, but And I think people are kind of still thinking back on those fond memories of when he was supposed to go in the third or fourth. But I mean, the reality is he's a seventh round pick now. He's behind two really talented running backs. I mean, I've always been a Kenyon Drake fan. I'm really glad he got out of Miami because that was just a terrible situation for him. Chase Edmonds, when he started games, he's had some huge weeks and showed a ton of potential. So I wish that Eno landed in a better spot, but I've had a few Twitter debates with people who are obsessed with Eno and taking him in the second round of rookie draft. So at least this was the third round. I can accept that a little more.
Tyler Johnson is probably my favorite pick of the round. He has every opportunity to go in there and be in three wide sets and catch passes out of the slot from Tom Brady. I mean, Godwin could be in the slot too, but I think like if they're running three wide with all those weapons that they got there, Tyler Johnson just going over the middle, catching some balls from Brady could have a good first 2 years in the league at least. With Brady under contract for 2 years, I think he could definitely get you some fantasy points there.
Yeah, no, and I agree with that. And two guys that I like in this round as well, Devin Duvernay, who I think is going to have the opportunity to start day one for the Ravens. Not that that's a heavy pass offense, but he's competing with Willie Snead right now for snaps, and I don't expect that to be a challenging competition. Even if it takes 3-4 weeks for him to take over those snaps, I expect Hollywood and Duvernay to be their starting wide receivers. So I could argue that he has a ton of upside in the third round. You already mentioned this name, but Joshua Kelly I like in this spot as well. That's a name I just keep forgetting about in rookie drafts. We talk about all these top-end running backs that go in the first round, and we've mentioned McFarland and Gibson and Dillon and Moss. And I just keep forgetting about Josh Kelly. I mean, he's in a good spot. We've really never seen Justin Jackson perform it for the Chargers yet. There's been some hope there, but realistically, from day one, he could be a perfect complement to Austin Eckler. So I think it's a great value in the third round. You're getting a guy that could see, I don't want to say 200 touches, but, it's not out of the realm of possibility that he gets a good number of touches. So I'm really intrigued to see how that backfield shakes out, and I think it's a good opportunity there. I'll mention P. Ryan quickly, too, who went with one of the kind of middle of the third round here. I like P. Ryan a lot. I think that long term he still can take over that backfield for the Jets. For me personally, whenever I take him, I'm not expecting him to have any value at all in 2020. I mean, he's the definition of a taxi squad player for me. So the Frank Gore signing doesn't worry me. I mean, Frank Gore is going to be there one season. I think Le'Veon Bell is going to be on his way out. So I still think P. Ryan's value is good in my book, especially in Dynasty leagues.
Yeah, and going back to Josh Kelly, I remember pre-draft we were talking about a couple mocks that we've done, and Josh Kelly ended up being mocked to the Rams a couple times, and like we're not too far off from having Josh Kelly being one of the top 4 picks in Dynasty because of that landing situation. But he ended up going to the Chargers where they got Eckler, and he could kind of take over that Melvin Gordon role. In this third round, actually, before we do that, we got a question. Lucas asked, he gave up a 4th and a 5th round pick for David Njoku, hoping for low risk, high reward type trade. Plus, he still has another 4th and a 5th, so kind of got him for free. Do you think he gave up too much or no? If you have the other 4th and the 5th round pick, I don't think it's a bad deal. Even number one, are these rookie picks that you gave up, or I'd assume so. Right, I mean, I don't think we're talking about redraft picks. So yeah, so 4th and 5th round rookie pick for a tight end but Cleveland went out and picked up Austin Hooper, and they drafted Donovan Peoples-Jones, who's not a tight end, but it's another weapon that they got there. So plus you still got to feed Landry and Odell Beckham, especially Odell before he cries. So it is a low risk, high reward type trade, but I don't think it's a bad trade for what you gave up.
Yeah, I mean, I think in my opinion, it's definitely not a bad trade. I think in my opinion, all 3 of those pieces are dart throws, including Njoku. I mean, he's shown flashes, but as of right now, if he stays on the Browns, I mean, he's going to have almost no role there. They have a lot of people to feed. I mean, and you didn't even mention the guys in the backfield, Chubb and Hunt, who also take targets away because they can both catch the ball out of the backfield. So there's a lot of mouths to feed, and some loud mouths, I'll say, with Odell Beckham there. So you got to feed those guys the ball first. And I guess my philosophy on it is if you have three darts, I'd rather throw two darts than one. So that's why I personally would probably keep the fourth and a fifth, just because it's two picks over one player. So I'll take those two dart throws. And maybe one of those, if you're concerned about tight end, you take a guy like Adam Troutman, who has potential long term. He doesn't have a defined role this season, but Jared Cook's getting older. He'll probably be gone after this season, and Troutman could be in 2021, a fantasy relevant tight end. So if you grabbed a guy like that, and then you were able to, I'm looking at our board here, even a KJ Hill who might have a role in the slot for the Chargers. Van Jefferson slipped a ton in this draft. He went in the fourth round, which I think is insanity, but if you got Van Jefferson and Adam Troutman, I'd rather have that personally than Njoku.
Yeah, like I said, wasn't a bad trade. Stefanski, Lucas says Stefanski does run two tight ends, and the Joku could be on a different team next year, which is all true. So
Yeah.
it's not. I mean, again, you could look at this board. This is an IDP board too, so this doesn't really tell the whole story. If you're not in an IDP league, then you could I could try to bring up the other players who might have still been available. So not too much other names that are going to be out there. Jeff Thomas is a
No.
name that I'm seeing getting a lot of love lately. I don't know why, but yeah, I mean, even if you wanted to take another tight end, just going off of our board, Adam Troutman, Cole Kmet, Thaddeus Moss, those are all guys that you might have been able to take to pair up with a Van Jefferson or a KJ Hill, Brian Edwards. So it's not a bad deal. We're not hating on it, but having the two picks over the one player, we each got our own opinion there.
Yeah, no, and I think overall when it comes to trading, and I think giving trade advice is so challenging because everybody has preference. And at the end of the day, if you like Joku, you like that system, there's nothing wrong with going out and getting your guy. That's what I always tell people is even if I hate, we'll say Nick Chubb, for example. I don't hate Nick Chubb. That was just the first name that came to my head. Just because I don't value him doesn't mean he's not going to have a great season. So if that's your guy, I always tell people go out and get him. Don't overpay for him. But, I think a fourth and a fifth is definitely not an overpay for Joku. So, if that's your guy, go out and get him.
Yeah, definitely. Finishing up this third round, we don't really have a lot of time left of being live here, but we'll run through as much as we can. Not really surprising pick. I mean, he was the best defensive player on the board, but in IDP, you really don't get a lot out of your defensive linemen. Sacks are worth quite a bit, but when you're looking at IDPs, you want tackles, which would come from the linebackers. But Chase Young goes at 311, and Thad Moss was actually the first tight end off the board over guys like Cole Kmet, Adam Troutman, and your Hunter Bryant, who could be in two tight end sets over there
Yeah. Neither of the
in
Patriots
Detroit.
tight ends got drafted
Yeah,
either.
that's crazy. I mean, if I was looking at a tight end, I was probably looking at Adam Troutman because I wouldn't have taken him to the fifth round. Or I was kind of hoping that Thad Moss was there available on waivers after the draft was over. But taking at 312, it's not. I mean, he's stepping into what could be the number one tight end role in Washington, but you still have a question mark at quarterback. You don't really have a legit run game there. You don't really have like a top tier wide receiver one there. So could he get the targets? Yeah, he is a smaller tight end though, so if he's not going to be out there a lot on running plays, I don't imagine. He needs to bulk up a little bit. And on passing plays, what was he? I think he's 6'2", 6'3".
6'2", yeah.
He's not gonna. I mean, he's not going to be the type of tight end wide receiver that can just go up top and grab that rebound like they say in basketball, like a lot of tight ends are. Grab that rebound and slam it down.
Yep. Yeah, and I'll say with Chase Young too, just quickly in IDP leagues, I kind of get it in this spot because we're starting, when we talk about dart throws, I mean, we're starting to really get to some dart throws. So, I mean, I could argue there's a lot of value. I think Chase Young's a pretty surefire prospect. So if you're getting a top 10 defensive end for fantasy purposes for the next 10 years, I mean, that could actually be a steal of a pick. So, I definitely can't argue with the value there.
Yeah, this Fantasy Holics episode is brought to you by Arachnic Dartboards, because we said dart throws so many times today. Running through the fourth round, we've already mentioned a couple players in this round. This is the Brian Edwards round. Cole Kmet was the next tight end off the board. I think I don't know, I'm kind of on the fence about Cole Kmet because I don't like his team. I don't like his. I don't really trust Nick Foles or Mitch Trubisky back there, but at the
What
same
if
time,
Trevor Lawrence is there?
then I might like him a little bit more. Yeah, I mean, he was the number one tight end drafted in this draft, not in this draft, in the real draft, and he went to a team that could definitely use him. I mean, they signed Jimmy Graham in the offseason, but who knows? I mean, Cole Kmet, he could be pretty solid there in Chicago. I I'd have to watch him a little bit more. I'm not really sold on him yet. I think it's a good spot for him. Fourth, fifth round is when you want to start taking your IDPs and your tight ends. So it's not bad at all. I don't know. Um,
Yeah, I mean, I think in that spot it's fine. I'm not the biggest Cole Kmet fan either. I mean, and it's hard to look past this season sometimes too, even in dynasty leagues. But realistically, we have no idea what the Bears' long-term plan is at quarterback. So, I mean, I still think it's a chance worth taking in that spot. I mean, they did the fact that they took him with their very first pick that they had in the draft. I believe it was their very first pick that they
yep.
had in that draft. I think Jalen Johnson came after. So, I mean, the fact they took him when they have so many other needs tells you that they have a lot of faith in him. Matt Nagy too comes from an Andy Reid style, and Andy Reid's had a ton of tight ends with success over the course of his career. So I think that he wants a really dominant force at tight end. But I mean, I don't even know if Matt Nagy is going to be there long term. I mean, if they have a bad enough season this year, I think they kind of push the reset button, take a quarterback, and start over.
Going a little bit off topic here, but it has to do with dynasty. We're in a lot of Facebook groups together, and you might have seen these questions pop up too. But David Montgomery is a name that's been floating around out there in trades. In where should I draft him? So, do you have any just quick info? I know you really weren't prepped for it right now. We could get back to it on our next show if you want. But anything right now on David Montgomery? Or any thoughts on him?
I mean, off the top of my head, I think he averaged only 3.7 yards a carry, I want to say, last year. And if that's completely accurate, I'm going to be semi-impressed with myself. But I believe it was 3.7 yards a carry.
Look it up.
You know, I mean, that's not impressive at all, first of all. So I think David Montgomery didn't look great to me. The Bears' offensive line is really bad, and they really didn't improve it at all this offseason either. So I'm very concerned with that offensive line. You know, the only reason that I like him short term is that he is the number one running back. I mean, Tariq Cohen is not going to be taking away all the, you know, he'll get some touches out of the backfield as a receiver, but he's not going to realistically be taking a ton of carries away. So I think David Montgomery is the surefire number one guy there. So I like that, but long term, once again, I could really see the Bears pushing reset after this season. So David Montgomery to me might be more of a short term play rather than a long term play.
It was 3.7 yards too. Just so
Dang, that's weird.
you need to get a life. Uh, so yeah, we're running a little overtime right now. We appreciate you coming on, Lucas. Thanks for all the questions and everything that you asked. And we're going to be doing this every Tuesday, so check us out next week too, same time. Just running through the rest of this draft, just real quick. We had five IDPs taken total. We already talked about the one, but four linebackers: Isaiah Simmons, Kenneth Murray, Patrick Queen, Willie Gay. Really no surprises there. Not really surprised at where they were taken. Not really surprised that they were taken. Just all good picks there. I mean, Isaiah Simmons was your first one off the board, which is for good reason.
Yeah,
He's going to be
that was to me. Yeah.
he's going to be there. He's going to be all over the field in Arizona. I mean, Arizona's going to be my NFC team this year, so I'm going to be watching them a lot if I can.
Oh, we can't talk anymore then. And just before you get too much further, just give me my moment with Van Jefferson, because that was a guy that I talked about pre-draft, and then he went to my Rams, so I'm pretty excited about that. But I just like guys that are really polished coming into the NFL. I mean, Van Jefferson's not going to be a guy that slots in as the number one or two guy in LA. But I mean, I think he's polished enough where he could. So I really liked him coming into this draft. I think he kind of reminds me of Cooper Kupp a little bit, so it's a little ironic that he's there. But I think that he's going to slot in really nicely as the third wide receiver with the Rams, and I expect them to be really pass heavy this season. So in the fourth round, I think he's a steal.
Yeah, I think he's going to be one of the better wide receivers that you can take late. Getting him in the fourth, fifth round if you can. I mean, he could have even gone where Colin Johnson went in the third round in this draft,
Yeah,
or Devin
I
Duvernay
take
went
him
in
in the
this draft.
third.
So it's definitely a good steal there for if that's Ryan's pick. That's a good steal for him. I took James Proche or Proche, however you say it. I just wanted another wide receiver there. I thought he was the best one left on the board. Justin Herbert went right after me, and then like I said, we talked about the other linebackers taking Patrick Queen, Willie Gay. Then we had Adam Troutman taken, who I think is probably going to be one of the better tight ends out of this draft. He gets to work with Drew Brees this year, and then he gets to be a safety blanket for whoever their quarterback is next year. So that's an awesome deal right there at 5'4". I think it's a good value, good steal there. A couple quarterbacks were taken in the fifth round: Jalen Hurts and Jordan Love. If that's your pick, you took Jordan Love. Is that your pick?
Yes, unfortunately.
Had to stick with the guy with your name. And then the draft ended up with three tight ends, a run on tight ends at the end. And as we mentioned a little earlier, none of the Patriots tight ends were any of them. So they were, unless some waiver moves have happened, which I haven't really checked yet, they are still floating around. And
I picked up both of them just for the record.
oh, okay. So I guess they're not hanging out there. But yeah, I mean, I'm happy with my draft. I have another draft that is our other dynasty, and I personally I like it more, but at the same time it's it's a four. How the hell do I got it here? It's a 10-team league, so of course the value is going to be a little bit better. I had 5 picks within the first 2 rounds, so I had picks 1 and 2, and then I had 3 picks in the second round. So I mean, it really couldn't go wrong. And again, it was a 10-team league, so that's 4 guys that dropped a little bit further than what we just talked about. And yeah, so I'm pretty excited about that draft. If we need to talk about that next week, we can. But in the meantime, we're gonna sign out for today. We're gonna do this every Tuesday at 8:30. This is the wrong. Oh, damn it! Let's get rid of that. That was the wrong sign. It said Mondays. I must not have saved the new one. It's a user error. We're going to be doing this every Tuesday at 8:30 Eastern. You can check us out on Facebook on Fantasyholics. That's where the broadcast is going to come from. You can check out our website for all of our articles. We got individual player rankings going on. We got individual player write-ups going on, so check that out at thefantasyholics.com. Check out our YouTube. At YouTube, it's Fantasyholics, and then our Twitter is Fantasyholics1. Jordan, anything before we close it out?
No, I think you pretty much hit it, but yeah, we've had the website rolling for about 3 weeks now. We have about 5 articles going up every single day, so if you're looking for some content and you're bored at home, that's your place to be.
All right, so until next week, thank you guys.